Minutes after my mastectomy, my husband disappeared, and the doctor handed me something he left behind. She woke up in the cold brightness of the hospital room, feeling sore, heavily bandaged, and cautiously hopeful that the worst was finally behind her. Her mastectomy, the surgery she'd waited 10 long, agonizing years to finally face after countless postponements and mounting fear, was over. The cancer that had been growing silently in her body for months had been removed. She'd survived the surgery. She was going to live. But the real shock, the real devastation that would nearly destroy her, hadn't even begun. Minutes after she opened her eyes, still groggy from anesthesia, the nurse came in to check her vital signs and casually mentioned that her husband had left. Not just stepped out for coffee, not gone to move the car or make phone calls. Left. Completely left the hospital. No explanation given to the staff. No goodbye to his wife who'd just undergone major cancer surgery. Nothing. Just gone. Then the doctor entered quietly, his expression uncomfortable and pained, carrying a small sealed envelope her husband had handed him before disappearing from the hospital. With trembling fingers still weak from surgery and anesthesia, she opened the envelope and discovered a truth that shattered her more deeply than any surgery ever could. A truth he had been hiding from her for years, possibly their entire marriage. A truth that explained why he walked away the exact moment she needed him most. A truth that revealed the man she'd been married to for 15 years was someone she'd never actually known at all. That day, lying in a hospital bed recovering from cancer surgery, she learned that losing part of herself to disease wasn't the hardest part of survival. Losing who she thought her husband was, losing the marriage she'd believed was real, losing her faith in the person who'd vowed to love her in sickness and in health, that hurt far more than any physical wound ever could. Before I tell you what was in that envelope, and the devastating secret this woman's husband had been hiding for their entire marriage, you need to subscribe to this channel immediately. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now, because this story is going to take you on an emotional journey that will leave you absolutely stunned. I share real stories about betrayal, survival, and the strength people find in their darkest moments every single week. Smash that like button, because this story needs to reach everyone who's ever been betrayed by someone they trusted completely. Drop a comment telling me if you've ever discovered a truth about someone at the worst possible moment. This is a real story. This happened, and it proves that sometimes the deepest wounds aren't physical. My name is Claire. I'm 43 years old, and 2 years ago, I woke up from cancer surgery to discover my husband of 15 years had abandoned me and left behind a letter that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. To understand what happened that day, you need to understand the 10 years leading up to it. 10 years of living with fear. 10 years of postponing the inevitable. 10 years of my husband Marcus claiming to support me while secretly resenting everything about my illness. If you're already invested in this story, hit that like button and comment "hospital betrayal," because what Claire discovers is absolutely heartbreaking. I was first diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 33 years old. Early stage, highly treatable, but requiring a mastectomy. The doctors recommended immediate surgery, but I panicked. I was young, newly married to Marcus for just 3 years, still felt invincible despite the diagnosis. I opted for lumpectomy and radiation instead, the less aggressive treatment. For a while, it seemed to work. The cancer went into remission. I convinced myself I'd beaten it without losing part of my body. But cancer doesn't care about denial. It came back when I was 36, more aggressive this time. The doctors were firm. I needed a mastectomy, but I was pregnant with our first child, a daughter we'd been trying to conceive for 2 years. The doctors said we could do the surgery after delivery, so I postponed again, living with cancer growing in my body while I carried my daughter to term. She was born healthy. I was grateful, but terrified of the surgery that loomed ahead. After my daughter Emma was born, I postponed the surgery again, told myself I needed to establish breastfeeding first, needed to bond with my baby, needed to recover from childbirth before facing another major surgery. Marcus supported every postponement, always said, "Whatever you need, Claire. We'll do this when you're ready." I thought he was being patient and understanding. I had no idea he was becoming resentful and angry. Subscribe right now because the truth about Marcus's real feelings will shock you completely. The postponements continued. When Emma was 2, I finally scheduled the mastectomy. But the week before surgery, my father had a massive stroke. I canceled to help care for him. Marcus said he understood. When Emma was 4, I scheduled it again. But Marcus lost his job and we lost our health insurance. Had to wait until he found new employment with benefits. When Emma was 6, I scheduled it a third time, but I developed a severe infection that required postponing until I recovered. Each time, Marcus would say supportive things. Your health comes first. We'll get through this together. I'm here for you no matter what. I believed him completely. But the cancer kept growing. By the time Emma was 8 years old and I was 41, I couldn't postpone anymore. The cancer had spread within my breast tissue. I was facing not just mastectomy but potentially chemotherapy if the margins weren't clean. I was terrified, but I finally accepted that I had no choice. The surgery was scheduled. Marcus helped me prepare, came to all the pre-op appointments, held my hand during the scary conversations with surgeons and oncologists, told me repeatedly that he loved me, that I was beautiful to him regardless of what my body looked like, that we'd get through this together. The night before surgery, he held me while I cried and told me, "I'll be there when you wake up, I promise. You won't be alone." He lied. About everything. The surgery was early morning. Marcus drove me to the hospital at 5 a.m., sat with me during pre-op, kissed me before they wheeled me into the operating room, said, "I love you. I'll be right here waiting." The surgery took 4 hours. When I woke up in recovery, groggy and disoriented and in pain, the first thing I asked the nurse was where my husband was. She looked uncomfortable. "He left about an hour ago," she said carefully. Didn't say where he was going. I assumed he'd gone to pick up Emma from my mother's house, or gone home to get something I'd need. But 2 hours passed in my hospital room, and Marcus didn't return, didn't answer his phone, didn't respond to texts the nurse sent on my behalf. I started panicking. Had something happened to him? To Emma? Was there an emergency? Leave a comment saying, "Where is Marcus?" if you're as confused and worried as Claire was in this moment. Then my surgeon, Dr. Patterson, came into my room. She looked uncomfortable, almost angry. "Claire, I need to talk to you about something difficult. Your husband asked me to give you this after you woke up. Then he left the hospital." She handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Marcus's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a 2-page handwritten letter that destroyed me more thoroughly than the cancer ever could. The letter began, "Claire, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I can't do this anymore. I've tried for 10 years to be supportive, to be the husband you needed, but I can't keep pretending. The truth is, I'm exhausted. I'm resentful, and I don't love you the way I used to." I stopped breathing, kept reading through tears. "When you were first diagnosed 10 years ago, I was scared and supportive. But then you kept postponing the surgery, kept choosing fear over treatment, and I started getting angry. Angry that you wouldn't just face this so we could move on with our lives. Angry that cancer became the center of our existence for a decade. Angry that I had to keep being patient and understanding while you made excuse after excuse. Then Emma was born and I thought things would get better, but they got worse. You were so focused on being a mother that you barely noticed me. The cancer was always there, always an excuse for why we couldn't do things, why you couldn't be fully present, why our life had to revolve around your illness. I started to resent you, Claire. Started to resent Emma too, for being another reason you postponed treatment. Hit that subscribe button if you're absolutely devastated by what Marcus is saying, because it gets even worse. The letter continued, "I've been unhappy for years. Started having an affair 2 years ago with someone from work, someone who isn't sick, someone who doesn't make her illness the center of everything, someone who actually wants me and desires me instead of just needing me for support. I've wanted to leave for months, but I felt trapped, felt like I couldn't abandon my sick wife without looking like a monster. So I waited for you to finally have the surgery. Figured once you actually went through with it, I could leave without feeling like I'd abandoned you in your time of greatest need. The surgery is done now. You'll recover. You have your mother and your friends to help you. You don't need me anymore. And I don't want to be here anymore. I'm filing for divorce. My lawyer will contact you next week. I'll want joint custody of Emma. I've moved in with Jennifer. That's her name. the woman I've been seeing. She makes me happy in ways you haven't been able to for years. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this to your face. I'm a coward, but I'm also exhausted from pretending. I hope you recover well. I hope you beat the cancer, but I can't be part of your journey anymore. Marcus. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was reading. My husband had been having an affair for 2 years, had been resenting me for 10 years, had stayed only until I had the surgery so he wouldn't look like the villain who abandoned his sick wife, had planned his exit, moved in with another woman, filed for divorce, all while holding my hand and telling me he loved me and promising to be there when I woke up from cancer surgery. Dr. Patterson stood by my bed looking furious. I am so sorry, Claire. If I'd known what was in that letter, I wouldn't have delivered it. I would have told him to wait until you'd recovered. This is unconscionable. You just had major surgery. You should be focusing on healing, not dealing with this betrayal. Share this video right now if you think what Marcus did was absolutely unforgivable, because Claire's response shows incredible strength. I spent 3 days in the hospital recovering from surgery while my world collapsed around me. My mother came to help with Emma and to support me. When I told her what Marcus had done, she cried with rage, called him every name imaginable, wanted to confront him, but I stopped her, told her I needed to process this myself, to figure out how to survive cancer and divorce simultaneously. The physical recovery from the mastectomy was brutal. The emotional recovery from Marcus's betrayal was worse. I'd lie in bed with drains coming out of my chest, bandages covering where my breast had been, pain medication making me foggy, and I'd read that letter over and over trying to understand. How had I not known? How had he hidden resentment for years while seeming supportive? How had he carried on an affair for 2 years while sleeping next to me every night? How had he made plans to leave while driving me to cancer surgery? Friends rallied around me. My mother moved in temporarily to help with Emma and my recovery, but I felt utterly broken, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. The cancer had taken part of my body. Marcus's betrayal had taken my ability to trust, to believe in love, to feel safe with another person. I'd survived the surgery, but I wasn't sure I'd survive the emotional devastation. Marcus's lawyer contacted me a week after surgery, just as he'd promised in the letter. Divorce papers were filed. He wanted to split everything 50-50, wanted joint custody of Emma, was businesslike and efficient about dismantling our 15-year marriage. I was still recovering from surgery, still doing physical therapy for my arm, still dealing with the trauma of disfigurement, and I had to simultaneously navigate divorce proceedings. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because how Claire rebuilt her life after this double devastation is inspiring and powerful. The hardest part wasn't even the divorce logistics. It was explaining to Emma, who was 8 years old, why her father had left, why he'd moved in with another woman, why Mommy was sick and Daddy wasn't there anymore. I tried to be honest without being cruel. Told her that Mommy had been sick for a long time and it had been hard on everyone, but that Daddy had made choices that hurt our family. Told her it wasn't her fault, that both of us loved her even though we wouldn't be together anymore. Emma cried for weeks, asked repeatedly why Daddy had left when Mommy needed him most. I had no good answer. Just held her and cried with her and tried to be strong when inside I was completely shattered. I also had to process my own role in what happened. Yes, Marcus's betrayal was inexcusable. Leaving me minutes after cancer surgery was cruel beyond measure. But I also had to confront the truth that I'd postponed treatment for 10 years out of fear and vanity, that my choices had put strain on our marriage, that my illness had dominated our lives in ways that were probably exhausting for Marcus to endure. I didn't deserve abandonment, but I also wasn't blameless in how our marriage deteriorated. My therapist helped me work through the complicated emotions, the rage at Marcus, the grief over losing my marriage, the guilt about my role in the deterioration, the trauma of being abandoned at my most vulnerable moment, the fear that I'd never trust anyone again, the body image issues from the mastectomy, the cancer anxiety about whether I'd stay in remission. It was overwhelming, but slowly, painfully, I started healing, both physically and emotionally. The pathology from my surgery came back with good news. Clean margins, no lymph node involvement, no need for chemotherapy. I'd beaten the cancer. My body was healing. And with time, my heart started healing too. I started going to a breast cancer support group where I met other women who'd been through mastectomies. Some had supportive partners. Some had been abandoned like me. We shared our stories, our fears, our grief. We supported each other through reconstruction decisions, through body image struggles, through the trauma of cancer and treatment. Those women saved my life in ways the surgery couldn't. Leave a comment saying survivor strength if you're inspired by how Claire is rebuilding after this betrayal. 6 months after the surgery and Marcus's abandonment, I was doing physical therapy to regain full range of motion in my arm. Was going to therapy twice a week to process the emotional trauma. Was co-parenting Emma with Marcus in a stiffly formal arrangement where we communicated only through a parenting app. Was slowly, carefully rebuilding my life as a single mother and cancer survivor. One afternoon, Emma came home from a weekend with Marcus looking troubled. She was 9 now, more aware and perceptive. "Mommy," she said carefully, "I need to tell you something about Daddy and Jennifer." My stomach clenched. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Jennifer is pregnant," Emma said. "They're having a baby. Daddy told me this weekend. He said I'm going to be a big sister." I felt like I'd been punched. Marcus's affair partner was pregnant. They were having a baby. Less than a year after he'd abandoned me following cancer surgery, he was starting a new family. The betrayal felt fresh all over again. But I couldn't let Emma see my devastation. "How do you feel about that?" I asked carefully. Emma started crying. "I feel like Daddy replaced us, like he wanted a new family because we weren't good enough, because you got sick and I wasn't enough to make him stay." I pulled her close, my own tears falling. "Listen to me, Emma. None of this is your fault. None of it. Daddy made choices about his own happiness that hurt us. But those were his choices, not reflections of your worth. You are enough. You've always been enough. Daddy's choices are about his own character, not about how wonderful you are." We cried together, and I realized I needed to truly let go of Marcus. Let go of the marriage I'd thought we had. Let go of the anger and betrayal, not for his sake, but for mine and Emma's. Holding on to rage was poisoning us. I needed to release it and focus on building the life Emma and I deserved. The divorce was finalized 8 months after the surgery. Marcus married Jennifer 2 months later when she was visibly pregnant. They had a son. Marcus started a new life, seemingly without guilt or remorse about how he'd ended our marriage. And I had to accept that the man I'd married 15 years earlier either never existed or had been completely consumed by resentment and selfishness. Hit that like button if you think Claire deserved so much better than what Marcus gave her, because her story has a beautiful ending. It's been 2 years since that devastating day when I woke from surgery to find my husband gone and discovered his betrayal through a letter. 2 years of healing, therapy, rebuilding, and learning who I am as a survivor, both of cancer and of betrayal. The physical scars from my mastectomy have faded. I chose not to have reconstruction, decided to accept my body as it is now, marked by survival, different than before, but mine and strong and cancer-free. The emotional scars are still there, but healing. I've learned to trust again, slowly. Started dating cautiously after a year, though I'm upfront about my history and my scars. Emma is 11 now, still processing her father's abandonment, but resilient and strong. She sees Marcus every other weekend, but their relationship is complicated. She knows what he did, knows he left when I needed him most. That knowledge has affected how she sees him, despite my efforts to never badmouth him to her. I've also found unexpected blessings in the devastation. The breast cancer support group introduced me to women who became close friends. Other survivors who understand the unique trauma of losing part of your body and your sense of femininity. We've formed a community of support that's been more valuable than I can express. I went back to school and became a patient advocate, helping other cancer patients navigate treatment decisions and emotional challenges. Turned my pain into purpose. Use my story to help others feel less alone in their struggles. And I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. I survived cancer. I survived the betrayal of someone I trusted completely. I survived the darkest period of my life and came out the other side intact. Damaged, yes. Changed, absolutely. But intact and increasingly whole. People ask if I've forgiven Marcus. The answer is complicated. I've released the acute rage and pain because holding on to it was destroying me. But forgiveness? I'm not sure I'll ever fully forgive abandoning me minutes after cancer surgery. Forgive the affair and the lies and the cruelty of that letter. Some betrayals are too profound for complete forgiveness. What I have done is accept what happened and choose to move forward without letting Marcus's choices continue to define my life. Subscribe to this channel if you believe survivors can rebuild beautiful lives after devastating betrayals, because Claire's story proves it's possible. The letter Marcus left me that day sits in a drawer in my bedroom. I don't read it anymore. Don't need to. I memorized every cruel word during those early months when I obsessively tried to understand. But I keep it as a reminder that people can hide who they truly are for years. A reminder that illness reveals character in ways nothing else does. A reminder that survival isn't just about beating disease. It's about surviving the betrayals and challenges that come with it. And a reminder that I survived the unsurvivable. If this story has touched your heart, if you've experienced similar betrayal or illness or both, do something important right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications. Share this video widely, because other women going through cancer and betrayal need to know they're not alone. Leave a comment sharing your own story of survival or supporting Claire's strength. Minutes after my mastectomy, my husband disappeared. The doctor handed me a letter he'd left behind, a letter revealing years of resentment, a 2-year affair, and his plan to abandon me the moment my surgery was complete. That day, I learned that losing part of my body to cancer wasn't the hardest part. Losing the husband I thought I knew, losing the marriage I believed was real, losing my ability to trust, that hurt far more than any surgery could. But I survived. I'm 2 years cancer-free, 2 years divorced, 2 years stronger than I knew I could be. I'm Claire. I'm 43 years old, and I'm proof that you can survive cancer and betrayal simultaneously and build a beautiful life on the other side. This is my story, and I'm sharing it so that anyone facing similar darkness knows you will survive this. You will heal. You will be okay, and you will discover strength you never knew you possessed. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing my story. And remember, survival isn't just about beating disease. It's about healing from every wound, physical and emotional, and choosing to keep living with courage and hope. The end.